Hi, this is Mr. New, and we're going to be discussing Flash Professional in this next series of videos. This is the introduction, and you may wonder what Flash Professional is. Flash Professional is the industry standard program for creating animations and also for creating applications for the web, desktop, and mobile devices. It is also used for delivering video content to the web. I'd like to get into talking about some of the most common file types we're going to be running across as we are working with Flash. And one of the most common types is a .fla file. In fact, these first 5 types that we'll be working with actually all create .fla files. These are Flash work files, and they are similar to what a PSD file would be to Photoshop or a .ai file is to Illustrator. The next most common file you're going to run across is an extension of a .swf, and this is the output file that Flash will create. This is similar to what would be a JPEG or a PNG. Less common file types that you're going to run across is ActionScript.as, which is the native language to Flash. You're also going to find Flash JavaScript that has the extension JSFL. And we also may be running across Flash projects that have the extension .flp, which is used to organize various other files such as FLAs, .as, .jsfl files, etc. But just remember that the most common thing we're going to be running across, and pretty much all you're going to see mainly, will be the .fla and .swf files. Let's talk about the Flash environment. Before we do, we're going to go ahead and open up a file here. Pretty much for the first while here, we're going to be working mainly with ActionScript 3.0. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. First thing you're going to notice is the light white area here in the middle is called the stage. This is the visible area of your project. Anything outside the stage will not be seen by whoever is watching your animation. The gray area surrounding the stage is the pasteboard. This is the non-visible area of your project, and it's areas that you might be able to keep and store files and store items. Below the stage, and I'm not sure why it's not there, let's go ahead and reset our essentials. There we go. By resetting our essentials, we've now opened up and we can see our timeline. Our timeline is actually where we will be organizing layers. We can set layers up at the side, as well as setting up frames for our animation. Animation works very similar to video, where you actually have frames that will be repeated extremely fast in order to create the illusion of motion. In video, we'll be working with primarily 30 frames per second, understanding the film frame rate, 24 frames a second. Some functions we might actually go as high as 60 frames a second to really get that smooth animation that we might be looking for. At the top, we have our navigation and zoom bar. This is right here where it says Scene 1. This will give us information about our video. And over here on the right, we have our zoom. We can actually zoom to fit in window, show frame, show everything, 25%, 50, 100, and so on. If I click to fit window, it brings it up to that full size. Show all. Kind of gives us a similar look, but gives ability to scroll. We'll go back to 100% for right now. That would be kind of an actual size. Next to the stage and pasteboard, we have our property panels and other important panels that we might have out here. As I hover over this, we have a color panel, swatches. Just like in Illustrator and Photoshop, I can drag and pull this out so I can actually see what these are. The most important panel we're going to work with, though, is the properties panel. Depending on what tool we choose off of our toolbar over here on the right, the property panels will change in order to allow us to view various functions for that property. So for instance, if I click on the pen tool, notice how all this changes in the property panel. If I click on the rectangle tool, I get some more options. The eraser tool, more options still. So that property panel is going to come very handy and be extremely important as we work with Flash CS5. The toolbar, extremely similar to the toolbars we've seen in Illustrator, InDesign, and Photoshop. A lot of the tools we're going to notice here are very similar, like the pen tool and the rectangle tool. There's going to be a few new tools, however, like the deco tool, bone tool. We have a few different ones out here. Underneath the tool palette, there's an option area here that gives us some extra options depending on the tool we're choosing. Like if we had choose a brush tool, we have certain options that will show up down here that will be functions only for the brush tool. So we're going to keep an eye on that too as we switch from tool to tool. Just like in Photoshop and Illustrator, the little dark triangle next to the tool actually tells us there are other tools grouped with that tool. So when I click on the pen tool, I get a flyout menu that gives me a number of other tools. The add anchor point, delete anchor point, and convert anchor point, along with the pen tool. If it does not have that, when I click on it and hold the key down, it's just that tool. So realize the triangle means there is a flyout menu to give us more options. When we do hover over a tool, there will be a letter in parentheses next to that tool that will also give us the actual shortcuts for those tools. So with the rectangle tool, if we just hit R, we would get the rectangle tool. O for oval. The shortcut you're going to want to remember, and that is the selection tool. Make sure that you kind of memorize V to get to our selection. We're going to be using that an awful lot. The text tool as well, T for text. And one other one, which is different than Illustrator, is our free transform tool, which is the letter Q. So we want to make sure that we learn to use those and be able to get those down fairly quick, because we will be switching between those quite often. Now when we do start up with a new tool, let me go back to my selection tool here. When we start up with a new screen, we have some options over here on the right. First of all, we can choose our frame rate. Right now it's set at 24. I'm going to go ahead and switch that to 30 frames a second, so it'd be more matched up with what a video frame would be. We can change the size of our screen. Right now it's set at 500 by 400. If I click on edit, it allows me to make changes. I can change dimension and height. I can go from inches to points to centimeters, millimeters, pixels. And for match, we can go to default or set it up for printer. We can even change our background color. If we were wanting to have like a blue sky, we can go ahead and change that where everything back there is going to be blue. So I'll go ahead and hit OK. We've got our blue background, and we'll be ready to start creating. There's just a couple more shortcuts I'd like to talk about real quick, and one is dealing with the hand tool as well as the zoom tools. Now I can click on the hand tool or the zoom tool over here on the tool panel, but that is a little time consuming. I really don't want to waste that kind of time. Realize as I have my mouse over my stage, I can hold the space bar down like I did in Illustrator and Photoshop, and immediately my hand tool comes up. So I can use my hand tool and then let go of the space bar, and I'm back to just having my main selection tool. So once again, space pulls up my hand tool. I can do the space command, and that gives me my zoom in. So if I click, I can click in and zoom in. Notice now I'm up to 400. If I hit space command option, it gives me a minus. I can zoom out. And I also have the option of doing the space command click and drag to highlight just a section. So that will happen just like it did in Illustrator and Photoshop. By hitting the command 1, it puts me at 100%. Command 2 gives me a full screen. Command 4 puts me at 400%. And Command 8 puts me at 800%. Your workspaces can be modified as well. If I decided to make changes here, I can pull swatches out. I can delete objects, and I can even break items out from inside. And realize no matter how messed up or how bad you might make everything here, you can always reset your panels by going to Essentials, Reset Essentials, and now your workspace is right back to where it was for industry standard. Once again, I do like to pull that out. Last thing I want to bring up, and that is that when you are working with Flash, we're going to be working with some drawing tools here in the next episode, understand that the native art for Flash is vector graphics. However, Flash can work with raster and bitmap. As you are creating, it's going to be vector graphics the same as it was in Adobe Illustrator. Hope this helped. We're going to go ahead and move on in the next episode into drawing some basic shapes.